to catch up. And yeah, so thanks for last session. We got through a huge amount, and we're a little bit rushed at the end, but that's all right, because I'll just repeat a few of those last things that we covered today. And we'll go through a couple of other topics. Hopefully you've had a little bit of a think about your research topic. And as we said, we don't want you to spend days and days on this one, but just grabbing a few bits of information that you can find online, putting together something creative or fun, or a bit of a fact sheet, some nice pictures or diagrams. That's what we want to see. And then we'll be making those available to the group, because as you would have seen in the list, there's a heap of different topics there: road safety infrastructure related topics, road safety audit style topics. And that's an indication that there is just a mass amount of stuff for us to know and understand about infrastructure and its how it plays out with safety of road users. And it's a continual learning for your entire career. And so it's nice to get these little bits of information about these different topics. And so we encourage you to have a look at all of those when they come in. And Kathy will make those all available in Moodle, so you can have a look at the fun and creative and informing things that the different participants put forward. So that's that. Hopefully you got to your quiz from last session as well, and there will be a quiz at the end of this session as well. So pay attention, and you should be able to get full marks on the quiz. And remember to keep your eye out for Wally the Wombat. Wally will appear again in these sets of slides. So as per last time, I'm going to pop up some slides, and then we're going to have a few different points where there'll be some questions, but at any time, feel free to put in your questions in the chat, and Kathy will feed those to me as we go. I'll be asking you some questions, so use the chat to answer those. Might give some prizes out along the way to add to the trivia prizes we've already given out. So anything before I throw a few slides up on the screen, Kathy?
Just a question's come through on whether people could do a PowerPoint, and absolutely you can do a PowerPoint, just don't do too many slides. Basically, we're just trying to keep it short and sweet, this research topic.
Yeah, PowerPoint's fine. Fact sheet, Word, cartoon. We had a great cartoon came in from a last session. That was fun. Series of things there, little videos, audio grabs, series of photos with some audio commentary or something. Anything you want, whatever's easy for you and fun and creative. Okay, so last session, we ended by talking about these types of road safety audit. Okay, the types, types of audit. And these are things that you as an auditor might be asked to do. So if the project is at the feasibility stage, the planning of the project, big ideas on the alignment of a new town bypass or something like that, or very, very conceptual stuff, you might be asked to do that feasibility design road safety audit. You get a bit more meat on that design. It might go to a preliminary design. And then when you get the full design set together, you'd be asking for a detailed design road safety audit. During construction, we need to ensure the safety of the workers, but also the travelling public. And that's where a roadworks or a construction site road safety audit comes into play. Pre-opening is, everything's basically finished and it's just before that ribbon gets cut. Pre-opening audit. Post-opening basically means it's open. It could have been running for a bit of time, and then an audit might be done just to check how it's all operating and make sure everything's good. And then we've got the existing conditions, which could be any road at any time, could get a road safety audit. And the thematic, as in it's got a theme, is that specific motorcyclist, cyclist, or pedestrian road safety audit, which is where you go out and you ride or you walk the area, and it may take into account areas really not as closely within the road reserve, and so there's a few other things that you do with those. Now, I'm going to take it when we get to talk about cyclists, motorcyclists, pedestrians. I've got some fact sheets on how to do these thematic audits and what extra steps might be taken. So you'll get some more information on that. So those are the types of road safety audit. That's when within a project or the life cycle of a road you would do these road safety audits. What we want to do in this session is talk about the steps within any of those road safety audits. So we use the same 8 steps within any audit, be it a detailed design audit or a construction site audit. It's the same 8 steps. You're just dealing with different information really that you get to be able to do your audit. So we're going to define those, have a little look at those, and then we're going to point you at where you can get some further information about these steps. And then after we've done that, we're going to dive into the first of our specific road users that we have a bit more of a detailed look at. And today we'll be talking about pedestrians and safety of pedestrians and considerations when road safety auditing for pedestrian safety. Okay, so road safety audits. It's a fairly straightforward process, and once you get to know it, it just becomes run-of-the-mill in doing these audits. It's got 8 main steps that we go through. It does take time. There's no getting around that really, because you have to go through these 8 steps, and if you've got a large design set, you need to be sort of going through that with a fine-tooth comb. They really do add value to projects at any of those stages, and they really need to be an integral part of a design process, that independent check, the audit, to ensure and guarantee the safety of the public. Now, I'll give out a prize here. I've got a sign here, and it's a Victorian sign, so it's maybe a little more challenging for some of our other participants in other jurisdictions. But if anybody can tell me what's slightly wrong with that sign in the chat, first one to do that can win a prize. And I'll come back to the answer to that. I'll give you a little bit of time to ponder that. There's something a little bit odd and a little bit off about that sign. So this diagram is from the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6A, which is where you go to get the information about how to do a road safety audit. The process of auditing. You don't get all the details of every thing you might find as an auditor, because that's limitless and requires a whole lot of, I suppose, knowledge and continual learning and all of that. But the steps are laid out in this diagram, and I'm going to go through each of those with you. But they are essentially to select the audit team, and the client is going to do that, or the designer or the project manager, and they're going to get their audit team. They're going to give them all the information that they need to be able to go and do their audit. There'll be some sort of commencement meeting or that information exchange. There will be, the audit team will then look at the documentation in detail. Then they will inspect the site during the daytime and the nighttime. They'll write up their audit report, and there will be some sort of completion meeting, our handover of the report and the findings. And then the designer, the project manager, or the client, they are then going to have to respond to the audit report. And I'll talk to you a bit about each of these in more detail and how they actually play out. But those are really the steps that we go through. This last one here is really critical to why we do audits, and that something is implemented. If there's no intention to ever change anything in the design, and getting an audit done is a waste of everybody's time and resources. We need that genuine desire to improve things and be open to implementing changes as the auditor recommends, as long as they can be done within the scope of the project. So I really get quite annoyed at audits that are a absolute tick box exercise, and nobody ever had any intention of doing anything with the audit when it came in, apart from putting it on the file and ticking the box to say they did an audit. If it's gone down that track, just don't waste the resources in doing that. But I really encourage. We talked about before. You can get some huge safety gains, and it's wonderful when it's lines on a bit of paper and they can be moved around and changed, and we can get some wonderful outcomes. Okay, so let's go to these steps one at a time, and I'll give you a little bit more info. Select the audit team. Now, it's important that you understand whichever jurisdiction you're in, what their requirements in their jurisdiction are in terms of what an audit team consists of. But general practice around the world in most jurisdictions is to have a senior road safety auditor. Some would call it a team leader road safety auditor. Some jurisdictions call it a level 1 auditor or the like. But it's basically somebody with a lot of experience. And then there could be more than one of those sort of senior people, but then you would have people who are newer to the auditing, and they are the road safety auditors. And then you can have others involved, but we would term them observers or trainees, depending if they haven't actually done an official road safety audit course like the one you're currently doing, but they are a technical person and they're starting to try to learn this stuff. We call them a trainee, essentially. An observer is somebody who's often from a different field. So if you've got a police officer involved in your audit, or if you've got the principal of the school or one of the teachers of the local school involved, we tend to call them an observer. Now, that being said, we have had some police officers do the audit course and understand the whole process and get involved, and then we term them road safety auditors as well. There's no specific requirement to have an engineering degree or be a technical officer or something like that. But if they're not, they haven't been through the course and they're sort of somebody you've pulled in to get an understanding of the context or the way a facility is used or the like, tend to refer to them as an observer. So technically, the client is responsible for appointing that team. In practice, as in the individuals in the team, but in practice, they tend to go to a consultancy or an auditor they know, and they say, well, "Can you do this?" And you pull the team you think that is right together. Sometimes they will say, "We would like you to involve others specifically," and you can make the decision whether you're comfortable having others into your audit team and have that discussion. It's important that everybody, I think, understands the process of what a road safety audit is, and important to get that right team. And I'll point you at some places where you can find lists of auditors with some information about their background. So a couple of just quick tips here. It's a team. You want to use an audit team. It's very rare that you would do a one-person audit, maybe on a very small job or the like. It could be a one-person audit, but really there's so many advantages of having a team or multiple people looking at the designs and getting involved in the audit process. So a team is what is asked for in the Austroads Guide, and I think it's hard to argue that you're a team of one. So you want to make sure everybody's independent. We talked about this again last week. Independence is so critical to the audit process, and it can get blurred with large consultancies. You know, talking about, oh well, you know, they're in a different team or something. You want to be very clear and very transparent with the independence from the designers, the project manager, and anybody who has an involvement in that project. Only a senior road safety auditor or somebody with that years of experience should be leading the audit team. And I'll talk to you about what that is in a second. Now, in an ideal world, your team will be quite varied. They'll have a broad set of road safety experience. There'll be a mixture of professions, mixture of ages, empathy with all road users, male and female perspective on things. So that would be ideal. You know, in practice, there's you know, it's sometimes hard to pull that very diverse team together, but this was a team that I was doing an audit with. It was actually a thematic road safety audit, motorcycle audit, but we had there you go, the three of us there doing the audit, all male, all about the same age, and all with a fairly similar background, traffic engineering and the like. And so we asked Wendy to come along, who comes with a very different perspective of things, and add that diversity to our team. In fact, Johan, who's there, is in this course. So there you go. So you want to then assess the documents, and as I mentioned, this can take a long time. If you're pouring through a 500-page design set with the full works, you're at your desk for a long time, and you might have multiple people doing it, so you're picking up different things. Now, so for me, when it's these detailed design road safety audits, I tend to get our real design experts involved, who are good road safety auditors as well. And the reason for that is I look at different parts of it, but they're able to quickly pick up geometric deficiencies out of a 20-page, cross section within sort of 10 minutes, where it would take me days and days to try to pull that all together. So yeah, this reinforces the importance of pulling that team together of varied expertise. You want to inspect the site during the daytime and the nighttime. Okay, there may be specific circumstances where your client, the designer, the project manager, actually specifies we don't need a nighttime inspection. They might do that for reasons of trying to save some money on the audit. Doesn't save them much money at all, but that might be it. Maybe a speed thing in terms of they want it all done in a quicker time, and that might add some time to it. It does say there's a little get out clause in the Austroads guide to say that you could, in some rare circumstances, not do the nighttime, but it pretty much says you should be doing a nighttime inspection. Now, the reason for that nighttime inspection is to see it, not only things like this, which is, here you go, you see it during the day time, everything, you've got good clear direction on where North Croydon is and the crossing and the like, and then at night you see the directional sign not so clear. We know which route number it is. It looks like there, but no, the retroreflectivity on that is non-existent. So yes, okay, you might pick up things like that. The signs are not reflecting, the street lighting's not working, and those sorts of things. But you also may pick up different land use characteristics. How the road's being used at night could be slightly different. Could be different road users. So you want to get out there at night, and in the audit process, that should be at every one of the stages of audit. So even at a feasibility stage audit, where it's the big planning one, and you do feel quite. It's a bit odd standing in a paddock often, doing your nighttime inspection, thinking, I'm not sure I'm getting a huge, but, for the small amount of extra time, you might pick up something out there. Maybe the way it ties into the new road and the street lights line up, so you might get visual deceit. Construction site as well, you definitely want to be doing those at night. How is the site going to be left? Are there different road users out there? So lots of important stuff there. Now, Kathy, did anybody come up with an answer to what little things might be of interest in this sign?
They sure did. I thought you actually might have forgotten about it, Ken.
Oh, no, not at all.
Yeah.
It's one of my favourites.
Okay, so what we have is the gap should not be on that side.
Yeah.
The gap should maybe be on the other side.
Well, give that person a prize. That is correct. I mean, the first question is, do we have gaps in roundabout signs? And the answer to that is yes, we do. Most jurisdictions in the world do. And the reason it's there is to give the road users a subtle indication, a clue as to which way to drive around the roundabout. So this one is on the wrong side, because in Australia, obviously, we drive on the left and we go around a roundabout clockwise. Other countries might be different. So people in some jurisdictions that drive on the other side of the road might have thought that everything was looking pretty good there. But that's correct. It should be on the other side. So now, why do I bring that up? It's a bit of kind of road safety or traffic engineering trivia fun. Some of you have probably driven past, tens of thousands of these in your lifetime and never even noticed a gap in the roundabout sign. And that's an indication of the subtlety and the back of mind, the subconscious things that are done out there on the road network, which I think is quite interesting and fun. There you go. That's how it should look. There's one that is correct. So shows us clearly which way we're going to go around that roundabout. Now, as a road safety auditor, okay, let's think about a road safety audit. If you see this on a design or when you're doing an existing bit of road, is it a road safety issue? Well, I suppose I'll reframe that question and I'll ask, when might it be a road safety issue? Are people really going to get confused by this? Are they really going to drive around the wrong way of the roundabout? And then if they do, are they actually going to crash? And if so, what speed are they going to do it at? It's a roundabout. It's probably going to be low speed. And is it something that would even bother putting into a road safety audit? Well, anybody actually pop it into the chat if you've got an idea of what sort of scenarios would you sort of start to elevate these sorts of risks a little bit. Anybody got any comments on that? I'm going to open up the chat so I can read it as we go. Okay, got a comment in there. In tourist hotspot locations, who's that from? Zena? Zenab? Prize there, please, Kathy. Tourist hotspot locations. Yes. So this is, I suppose, the indication that if you had a spot like the first roundabout you get leaving the hire car area out of Hobart International Airport, you probably have a higher likelihood of tourists being confused by this roundabout. Maybe our North American friends who actually don't know what a roundabout is and drive on the other side of the road now approach this thing. Now we're in a situation where there's a little bit more to it. I still don't think that this is you wouldn't be calling this high risk, but it's certainly something more important for us to be adding to our road safety audit findings in these locations. But this other thing is that this is just wrong, okay? And you're well within your right to just point this out. Sometimes on these sorts of things, I go, this is wrong. I do not think that this is going to actually contribute to any crashes in the future, but I don't like it and it needs to be rectified. And so I'll put it into my audit report, but I might put it as just a to note. And I just get, and I might do that with other things as well. Like if they've, there are things that are not directly road safety related for some reason or another. It could be like a land acquisition issue or something like that. I might say to note. I'll say, you know, just flagging with you that this is, you know, this issue is there. And that's instead of risk rating and having it as one of those specific findings. But you can put that in there as low risk if you believe it's low risk, or these you might even, you know, bump it up a little bit. The thing is with this sort of stuff, it gets changed. It's easy to change and it gets changed, and that's a good thing. Yeah, so this one got rectified. In fact, I usually have a photo of the rectified sign after I ran the audit course in Hobart and showed them their sign. They got out there, and actually within the course it was fixed, which was good. So then you go and you write your road safety audit report, and there is a general sort of template that is used, and we want that consistency in auditing. So we've certainly provided you a Word document template of an audit report that conforms with the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6A there in Moodle on your memory stick. So you've got one that you can use to ensure you're covering off all the things that should be in there. And when we get to the point in this course when you go out and you do a road safety audit, you're going to use that and you're going to fill it out. We happily give that to you because we want that consistency. We want you to use it going forward. Put your own branding on it and use that general format. Then we want to see in there description of the audit and the stage that the audit's undertaken, a list of the information that was provided to the audit team. This one, really important that you list not just what was provided, but the details of it in terms of the design number and the revision and the date of that design. And the reason for that is, as an auditor, I have quite a few times been either called up by the road authority or even in legal cases, and they say, well, you did an audit on this project. Why didn't you pick this issue up? Or why has this gone through in this way? And then I'm looking at it. I'm like, I'm looking at the side. I'm like, there's something going on here. I'm like, that is not what I audited. And the team and I are there going, and then we realize, well, what actually got built was a few generations after our road safety audit. So the plans that were audited were not what was built. And so it's important, and then if it's very clear in your audit report, you say, well, here you go. This is the audit we did on these plans, and if you've got a copy of them, you should have a copy of the plans. Is where you go, that's actually what we audited, and here's our audit report. It had nothing in there about, I don't know, the splitter island, because they didn't have a splitter island. That was not part of our audit report. So that's an important thing to do. You list who was in the team, the dates when the audit was carried out and the site inspections were undertaken, and then you do a logically arranged list of safety issues. And you go through those, and we do the risk rating and the safe system energy and the recommendations as we were starting to go through last session. So here's a table of contents straight out of the template that you've been given. So I don't need to go through it in details. all the usual sort of stuff you might have in any report, and those things that I've been talking about there. And down here, I suppose a good one, photos, and that's a very, I suppose, important thing to have photos of different issues you see, and make sure it's some evidence you're out on site as well. So then you have a completion meeting or handing over the report and a phone call to say, yep, this is it, and this is what we found. And then the client, the designer or the project manager, what they need to do is respond to that report. Now, they don't actually necessarily need to do that to the auditors, but they need to have that within their processes. And so each of the findings comes along with a recommendation, and the project manager or designer, whoever's received that report, needs to go through and decide whether or not they accept the finding, or whether or not they accept the recommendation, and whether they commit to making changes. It's really good practice for that to be fed back to the road safety auditor, so the auditors, got that full rounded picture of what's going on, but there's no specific requirement. The auditors are simply handing over advice to the project team, and it's up to them as to what they then do with that. But as we talked about, then we want to implement, hopefully. Yeah, so when it's given over to the project manager, this report or the designer, it's important that, keep file copies. Everybody needs to keep copies of that. It's an official document, and can and does get used down the track. So the project manager is required to respond. It's a vitally important step, and that's what I was talking about, where sometimes it's a tick box and an audit report gets handed over and they just pop it into the file and carry on. But it really needs to be something that's done. The project manager, the designer, when they get that report, a few little things if you're in that situation. Your response may become public. Be aware of that. So it's probably thinking about the language you use and how you respond to different things. And it's good to respond to the audit team. That's good practice. It's not absolutely required. The audit has been done to reduce the risk of a project. And there's a misunderstanding, I think, a common road safety audit misunderstanding, that anything the auditor says must happen. That's a misunderstanding. No. The audit is a report that is there to assist the project team, to advise, but it's their project. So if you're the project manager, the design, it's your project. You decide what happens, and you're responsible for making those decisions. But what you do need to bear in mind is that you've had independent professional advice that's making recommendations. So if you're not going to do things, you need to prepare some justification as to why you're not doing that, to hold on file in case something happens down the track. Yeah, so often we'll hand something over and then there might be a bit of discussion with the project team, and I'll say, look, we can't do that for these reasons. And then maybe you might say, well, that's what really needs to be done in our opinion. So, it's over to you. Maybe go and look for some other ways to reduce the risk and then come back and talk to us, or we can investigate some other ways to reduce that risk or the like. But it's their call. Sometimes a road safety auditor will present a finding and the project or the designer or the project manager will just say, I disagree. I don't believe that's an issue. And that's well within their right. And they simply need to explain why they don't believe it's an issue, and off they go. So, any questions that have popped in at this stage, Kathy, before I jump into having a bit of a chat about pedestrians?
No, we're all good for questions at the moment, Ken.
Very good. Okay. All right. Well, we might keep ticking along. How are we going on time? Okay, we're doing all right.
Doing well.
Yeah, that's good. Pedestrians. So it's a good topic, and certainly around the world, pedestrians are overrepresented in road trauma, and something that we really need to, I suppose, continue to take seriously. What's going on here? Here we go. Very good. So this one, I've got a couple of questions for the group as we tick along, a little exercise where you can have a look at a bit of the road and try and predict some crashes. So this little pedestrian module, as I mentioned, we want to cover off, well, I suppose one of the requirements of this course is that we look at individual road users and understand some of the road safety audit issues that are particularly prevalent for this issue, some of the needs for safe travel for these road users. So we're going to look at pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, or powered two-wheelers. And we look at heavy vehicles and passenger vehicles sort of interspersed throughout. Jamie Robinson, who's going to present tomorrow, is going to sort of hone in on heavy vehicles a fair bit in some of the stuff he does. So we then get that sort of rounded road users perspective, and you've got a bit of an idea. You've switched the light bulb on in your mind as you're auditing to think about all road users. Some auditors can get very focused on passenger vehicles, and we want that holistic look at safety. So we want to look at the requirements of pedestrians for safe travel. I want to point you at some technical information that you can refer to about pedestrian safety, look at common road safety issues for pedestrians, and understand basic pedestrian treatment terminology, just so you've got some good terminology in your audit report, the correct terminology. Okay, there are 4 groups of pedestrians we generally, at least in Australia and New Zealand, put at our greatest risk. And they are the elderly, the young, the disabled, and the intoxicated. Now, the greatest risk, looking at it in slightly different lenses of risk here, the overrepresentation, hang on, I'm just going to go back. The overrepresentation of intoxicated pedestrians in Australia and New Zealand is huge. And that's something that I suppose has often been used as a blame categorization, and to say, well, you know, drunk people walking out on the road, you know, they've got to stop doing that. It's their, you know, they've got to take personal responsibility and all of that sort of stuff. And the road infrastructure then hasn't been focused on as a potential way to reduce trauma there. We need to change that. Don't get me wrong, we need to continue to work on ways to try to minimise intoxicated pedestrians wandering into road environments and the like. However, we need to look at what the infrastructure is in place and the speeds and what we might be able to do to minimise that. Disabled, certainly a road user group that is at higher risk at that individual level. At a collective level, there's very low road trauma for disabled pedestrians in Australia and New Zealand. Other countries may have different statistics on this. But certainly some of the things we do in the construction of new roads or in existing roads that don't provide those facilities and put people with disabilities into danger. So we need to think about that. The young, obviously with cognitive challenges in terms of being able to understand when they should and shouldn't stop, and being driven by impulse motivators and darting out onto roads, chasing balls or chasing each other, or these sorts of things. The ability to process information is another one. So things like crossing multi-lane roads, very hard for young people to cognitively put all of that together. And funnily enough, it's actually similar with the elderly. They have the challenges in time it takes to react and process that information. So, it's a varied road user set there, and pretty much everybody is a pedestrian at some point during the day or in the week. Most people are pedestrians, so. Yeah, we've got to understand how we cater for this road user group. So there's these general strategies, these three general sort of broad categories of ways to cater for pedestrians. We've got segregation, separation, or integration. And what these are things like freeways or malls when we're segregating. So this is an area where pedestrians are not allowed, right? And you try to do everything you can to keep them out. We may also have it the other way around. This is an area for pedestrians, and we keep vehicles out as much as we can. Separation is where you're often using the same piece of road during one time for pedestrians like this, and then at another time, very shortly after, it will be used for vehicles. So that's that separation in time. School crossings, and these are also trying to be in that category of separation in time. So we shouldn't have the two using the same thing at the same time. These types of sort of crossings where people go all different directions also, again, with our time. Now, I'll give a prize out for the person who can tell me the name of a crossing where you're able to cross that way, or that way, all at the same time. And I want the, I suppose, official term for it. There's a so there's a couple of terms.
My favourite is Flinders and Elizabeth by Adam. Is that the official term?
that there is one there. Well done, Adam. No, so I'll give two prizes out for this. I'll give the sort of generally commonly known term, which is a scramble crossing. So whoever got that, I see that's come in a few times. But there's another one which is a bit more obscure.
Does it involve dancing, Ken?
It does involve dancing. It's the name of the person, I think, who came up with it in the UK originally. I'll let that go. See if anybody comes up with that. Yes, Rafaela has got it. It's a Barnes dance. Well done. I think Rafaela might do very well in one of our traffic engineering trivia nights, traffic engineering and road safety trivia nights. Those are all sorts of fun questions. It's called a Barnes dance. Yeah, I'm pretty sure a guy called Barnes, or maybe it was a lady called Barnes, came up with that in the UK quite a while back. So separation in time space. I'm not even getting into like road safety implications of these yet. I'm just showing you the categorizations of way you can try and create this. Separation in space generally are ways to provide refuges in the center of the road or sidewalks to separate the space there. Now, here's one which I suppose is a classic road safety audit thing to look at, and it's what sort of space are we providing in a refuge? And is it enough? Now, I like to use a rule of thumb on this one, and it's simply if a father or a mother is pushing their pram along, don't make them decide whether themselves or their child has to be sitting in live traffic. That's a pretty good rule of thumb. Some people like to use a bike. If you're on a bike and you're storing in the middle, is there enough space? But you'd also need to think about how many pedestrians are using this, and will they be congregating there, and is there enough space from that perspective? And we also need to think about mobility scooters and other sorts of mobility devices, obviously wheelchairs and those sorts of things. And are we providing the facilities for those? So this grade separation, so pedestrian overpasses, is something that around the world sort of is brought up quite a bit. What I want to say straight off the bat, in my opinion, is that these are not the be all and end all in many situations. So take this one for example, which is down Ballarat Road, Sunshine area. It will certainly be used by some people, but it is a long way to go up this ramp all the way up there when you could just cross over here. And what we find is that if these are not put in, places that are easily accessible in the right ways, they can be a large waste of money. And we still see a lot of pedestrian trauma in some circumstances. If they're designed well and they're in the right place and they're easily accessible, they're wonderful. Absolutely, you're eliminating the conflict points. But just be very thoughtful about that. And as a road safety auditor, what your role might be is to say, well, okay, you're going to get some people using that, but you're still going to get a whole lot of people using the road. So what can be done to alter this to get more people to use the overpass? Could it be redesigned? Could it be put in a different spot, or these sorts of things? In Australia, we have things called shared zones. So integration is really that concept that you will have this space shared between passenger vehicles and pedestrians. And a shared zone is in Australia is actually a legal. It's in the road rules, and it says that vehicles must give way to pedestrians in this whole zone. That's what the road rule says on this. Now, when we are designing shared zones, this shared interaction, there is some very, I suppose, simple guidance provided. There's some detailed guidance provided on how to create a shared zone, but the overarching principles are quite clear. There's one principle in particular which I think really sort of brings it home to me into what these areas should look like. And I will give a prize if somebody can tell me, what do you think that principle is? You know, the principle of designing a shared zone, what are you trying to do with it? And so pop a few ideas into the chat. Let's have a little bit of a see at what people come up with on that. Yeah, so pedestrian first, look like a pedestrian more, very close to what I'm thinking. That might be the prize winner. Road texture and color different. Well, that sort of aligns with, that's under the principle. That's now getting to how do you operationalize this. All road use should be integrated rather than separated from another. That's a good one as well. They're all linking into the same things, but I think Johan's going to win the prize there. Because what this sort of principle says is make it not look like a road. That it's sort of as easy as that. Make it not look like a road. And the reason for that is that you don't want it to be operated like a road, where vehicles tend to have priority, because pedestrians have priority. So here's one out in Sale, in Gippsland, and you can see they've popped the shared zone sign there, so that's good. They even put a supplementary there, give way to pedestrians, which that's the road rules, so they probably don't need to do that, but a decent reminder, because actually, funnily enough, not that many people know of the old shared zone road rule. And so then they've come up with the shared zone, and they've done some things that I really like. And then some things I think has probably let it down a little bit. What I like is that they've removed curbing. That's very good. It's a different color to the approaching road, so that's good. It'd be nice to have it as different texture, as one of you said there. The bits that I think could have been slightly improved, they went through and line marked it like a road, and they kept it straight like a road. So the really successful sort of shared zones out there have different surfaces, aren't line marked like that. They often, have parking in sort of different spots, so it's, it doesn't look or feel like a road. So as an auditor, if you're looking at these shared spaces, you want to be really critically thinking, okay, will a driver still believe they have this sort of priority through, and you don't want that confusion in priority. And really, for me, with pedestrians, confusion of priority from a road safety audit perspective is a major issue. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more shortly. Okay, what to look for when road safety auditing for pedestrians. Right, we're into now auditing, and either you're doing just a general road safety audit, and you're, of course, thinking about all road users, and now you're thinking, oh, I wonder how pedestrians are going to go here, or you're doing a pedestrian specific road safety audit, and so you're really honing in on pedestrians and how they feed into areas and where they go and the like. But there's very much a lot of overlap with those anyway. Okay, so here's a sort of first look at an issue that will come up a lot for you as a road safety auditor into your career, no doubt. Sight lines to pedestrian crossings. So is there good available sight distance to the crossing point? And you can see this one, we've got the shrubs overgrown here, the pedestrians there. This one's on a slip lane. Now, this causes a lot of other challenges for pedestrians. Now, there's a lot of discussion, a lot of chatter out there in our industry at the moment about pedestrians and slip lanes and how they operate. And the reason for that is, well, the first thing is that as you are approaching this in your car, for example, where are you looking? Well, the answer to where you're looking is that you are looking to your right here to see if you have a gap to put the foot down and go. The pedestrian over here has priority because we've got a pedestrian crossing here, don't we? So they are walking out there. And immediately we've got a concern, don't we? Because we've got the road user that needs to take action to stop looking in a completely different spot away from where the conflict point is. We've got the pedestrian who has everything that says that they have priority and they're just sort of potentially continuing along. And so we've got a bit of a nasty situation there. Add to that things like this increase the risk, because as the driver's approaching, maybe they sort of tried to look early on and then they look right. So what we sort of say is this is a common issue we know about, and there are ways that we can reconfigure the slip lane to improve pedestrian safety. And that can be everything from doing raised crossing points here. And so that actually significantly helps. There you go, I've raised it. Instead of having a pedestrian crossing, as in a zebra crossing, you could have it as a signalised. You could include it in the signalisation. You can, so you could remove the slip lane altogether, potentially. These are all possible things, and it's very situational dependent. We've done some different safe system snippets on the topic, which are on our website if people have a particular interest, and pointed you at some of the research available out there. It's a fascinating little topic. Kathy.
Sorry, Ken, just a quick question, or maybe a couple. Could we double up the give way sign, placing a pair in front of the pedestrian crossing?
Okay, so interesting idea, and it should be potentially explored a bit more. There is potential that would even further increase risk as well, because then you may have drivers sort of coming up and really seeing the give way signs and making their decision to go and then turning onto a pedestrian crossing. So yeah, these are all things you really need to delve into the detail of. And as I say, there's actually quite a bit of research that's gone on into pedestrians and slip lanes, because it's been a hot topic. As I understand, the Department of Transport in Victoria is doing further work on this topic because it's gained so much industry traction. And I suppose the reason is that a lot of slip lanes are going in because they sort of improve the traffic flow through an intersection. You know, you get continual movement through there and the like. So we see more and more of them rolling out. And I suppose it's good that we're acknowledging that pedestrians are something that we need to make front of mind in these sorts of decision making.
Just another question. Can a parking lot be considered as integrated space use?
Yeah, really good question. And you can certainly do road safety audits of parking lots, car parks, and it depends. It depends. So it depends how it is signed and how it is designed, really. A lot of car parks out there are not shared zones and integrated space by their sign-in and their decision-making and how they're going to operate it. Certainly a lot of Chadstone shopping centre, for those who know that, it's not shared zone. But if the decision's made to make it into a shared zone, then you would want to start to think about the design of it. It would make a lot of sense to make it a shared zone because you do have that integration. And if you're not having it as a shared zone, you would want to provide these clear, separated facilities for pedestrians to access their vehicles. What it is disappointing to see is when they do neither, as in it is pedestrians having to walk within the moving traffic, very much so. They haven't been provided their space to walk, but also not designed in a way that has a clear sort of pedestrians are the priority here. So altering the speeds down significantly and the surfaces and making it look and feel like a pedestrian priority area. So great question. All right, I'm going to move on from the slip lanes. So another thing we want to look at road safety auditing wise is where pedestrians are going to store and where vehicles are going to sweep. So Jamie tomorrow, it is tomorrow, isn't it, Kathy? Yeah. Jamie tomorrow is going to talk to you in quite a bit of detail about swept paths of vehicles and using those in your road safety auditing to, looking at the plan, where's the vehicle going to sweep. But if we have areas we know pedestrians are going to congregate and we know large vehicles are going to sort of sweep around there, this may be an area of concern. Now this one looks fine and the bus is not actually encroaching onto the pedestrian area, but it's sort of to show you that these sort of things can happen. And these ones come up at design stage quite a bit, where they're trying to squeeze in an intersection. And they've got land constraints and they've got all these different constraints. And what they'll do is sort of just either fudge their swept path diagrams or accept a bit of overrun onto an apron area. So they'll call it a mountable area where the vehicle will sweep, large vehicles will sweep. Well, if that happens to coincide with an area where you're going to store pedestrians as they're waiting to cross or they're in a refuge or the like, we've got an instant problem. And especially as vehicles sort of sweep and the tail of the vehicle sweeps around. And this can be a very big problem for cyclists as well, And cyclists have extra challenges because they're often storing on the roadway, which gets utilised by a vehicle turning, the swept path of the vehicle turning. So Jamie will talk to you a bit more about this tomorrow. The other thing to think about is if there are no pedestrian facilities. Now, this is an example here just of a road that's going to be altered into a truck bypass route. So the road is going to become the truck bypass of a town, and there are no pedestrian facilities. So there's a little bit of a shoulder here, so that might be an area that pedestrians could walk, but there are no facilities. And so the pedestrians are walking along in the in the grass there. And if it gets muddy, or you're trying to push a pram, or you're in a wheelchair, you have no option but to be utilising the road. And so this has got some risk inherent in it now, but as you can imagine, as the volume gets bigger and the presence of heavy vehicles gets more, it's becoming more and more a danger. And across the world, we just see an amazing amount of pedestrians walking, trading, and utilising road space for their activities. And we've got this inherent risk, which is high speed or higher speed vehicles mixing the same, essentially close or the same road space as very vulnerable road users, and it's bad. So this is, as an auditor, this is just easy stuff. You're obviously wanting to provide facilities for pedestrians so they don't need to utilise road space. But you've got to think about it not just, oh, well, this pedestrian looks like they're able to walk along there. Think about all those using the road. There's another one. We're seeing an elderly pedestrian there wandering along. Well, if they were using their, their mobility device, or or it was really muddy there, or the like, they really have no alternative but to be walking on the road there. There's a gap. Correct. Gap in a roundabout sign. Hang on, I just drew over it. I think it's going to be something that you'll never drive past a roundabout sign from now on without having a look at the gap. You can think of this course every time you do it. The other thing that we use, and it's a term that we use, but it's also a principle, a term that we use a lot as road safety auditors is this thing called desire line. So a pedestrian's desire line. And it's just simply like the straight line between the point that they're at and the point that they want to be. Straight line, that's their desire line. Now, pedestrians are a road user that will not budge off their desire line more than any other road user. Pedestrians hate getting off their desire line. So you can see this pedestrian here. Obviously, their desire line is over there at Footscray Station. And the traffic engineers have said, well, cross at the crossing and then walk down. And at least this one out of the 10 there said, stuff that, I'm going that way, and I'll walk along the road a little bit on the wrong side of the pedestrian fencing and then go to where I want, because you've taken me out of my desire line by 10 meters or the like. I want you to be aware of that, because a response often from a traffic engineer or a designer is, let's corral these pedestrians like sheep with pedestrian fencing, put them where we want them to go. And pedestrian fencing to me is this very complex thing to utilize correctly. We know that in some circumstances, the use of pedestrian fencing will significantly increase your risk for pedestrian crashes because of this scenario. Because if their desire line, they will walk on the road. They will walk across and just walk on the road next to your pedestrian. You're trapping them on the road. So we're thinking we're keeping them off the road, but we may be trapping them on the road. In some circumstances, it could work in very specific little patches. And I suppose it depends on your road environment and the like. The places that I find the most value of pedestrian fencing is two specific areas, and they're not probably what you think, where you would commonly think about putting pedestrian fencing. One is outside pubs or bars or anywhere that there are intoxicated pedestrians. And it's actually to utilize it as a almost containment fence for the patrons that are coming out of there intoxicated and falling or fighting and rolling out of this establishment, and they roll onto the road. And I've been involved in 2 coronial investigations into these incidents where people have fallen out of pubs, or there's been a fight, and the whole fight has gone out onto the road. And so that's the point where the pedestrian fencing to me is of huge value, because it contains it away from the road environment. There's other social issues to be dealt with there, but let's look at that from a road safety perspective. So that's one spot. And the second one's outside school gates, very similar. The kids running out, chasing balls, horsing around, and and going out onto the road. So that's another spot. And then it's sort of very targeted use in very little other places, but certainly, obviously, around freeways and the like, huge fencing, including the road safety barriers, obviously. Where you're really absolutely stopping pedestrians getting into the area. But think about that desire line. Always think about the different desire lines that pedestrians are going to have, and how is that going to influence where they go and where they're stuck. So I saw this little diagram on LinkedIn the other day. I thought it's a good demonstration of desire line, and I'd pop it into the course material. But we may see the designs, yep, doing that, and it's pretty obvious where the desire line is there, isn't it? I was talking to a local council engineer from the city of Greater Geelong a while back, and talking about this sort of stuff. And he says, "Oh yeah, sometimes we were doing a park, or we want to do paths in a park or the like. We just let it go for a while, and we see where the desire lines appear, because they'll look like this or like, and then we pave those." And I think that's a real user-centric design philosophy, rather than us designing where we want them to go. We'll see where they want to go and then try to provide those facilities. And some more stuff. Again, I think we've got the point here. It's a bit hard to see. The desire line's obviously there. There's no facilities. This was me just taking out a group of engineers to look at cyclists and two-lane roundabouts, which is a topic for another module we'll talk about. But that's the design. There's no facilities provided whatsoever there, and so we can have think about that. And pedestrians will make their way if they want to. This is not in Australia, but certainly a common thing, that if you have a community on one side and they want to get to the other side of the major freeway you've put in there, they will. And they will cut holes through the fences you put up. So this is a bigger picture planning issue, isn't it? If we can get in there at feasibility stage and provide these facilities from the get-go, we're in a much better circumstance. And when we're doing major road upgrades and the like, pedestrians have to be front of mind in consideration for these sort of things. How are we going on time here? Okay, it's about 11:10. What do you reckon, Kathy? Should we have a little stretch break now and then get back into it?
Yes, good idea, Ken. 2 minutes?
2 minutes. Have a stretch. Fill up your water if you want, or your third coffee for the day, and we'll get back into it in 2 minutes. I'll have a stretch and we're ready to get back into it. Okay, Kathy, you can hit record again if you haven't already. No, it looks like you have. Let's continue on with this real world example. and as we've done in some of the other sessions, it's often we look at incidents that have happened to try to help us as auditors to prevent future incidents in similar road environments. So I'm going to take you through an incident in this road environment to sort of help us in the future, and actually another one shortly after. This is a local street, as you can probably pick there, and you can see there, this is the driver's perspective. This is what a driver sees. It looks fairly straight through, not much to, okay, it is what it is. There's a little bit of a narrow point, that's fair enough. The next photo is taken just about here, looking across the road. So that's the pedestrian's perspective, and they see sort of that narrowed area, and that's where they are crossing. So you can see in this photo that the pedestrians are happily walking along, feeling they have priority, and this vehicle's slowing down to let the pedestrians go. Well, who has actual priority here? Who has legal priority? Well, in this case, the vehicle does. You know, there's nothing there. There's no defined pedestrian crossing. This is not a shared zone, not marked as a shared zone. So the driver has priority, but it's designed in a way that the pedestrians approaching it really feel they have priority. I mean, it sort of draws you to cross, doesn't it? It's narrow. It's a different surface. It all looks very pedestrian crossing, and you've got to remember that pedestrians are not traffic engineers or those that have detailed study of the road rules to really be front of mind thinking, well, actually, it doesn't have the zebra crossing markings and the correct signage, so it's not priority. So it's another reminder of this idea of confusion of priority being a danger. And in this situation, it happened. A pedestrian wandering along, believing they sort of had priority, or obviously not thinking about it, but subconsciously believing that they just walked out, and the vehicle traveling through at some speed because everything looks like it's their priority, and it actually is, and we had an incident. So how can we redesign these areas, or how can we pick that up early in the audits to try to make it clearer? A number of councils like to use different paint on the road in different circumstances, and this could be good and can be bad in some circumstances. These ones I'm particularly not a fan of to a degree, but maybe there's nothing better. But this is not a pedestrian crossing. This is something used, I suppose, to highlight to drivers that there could be pedestrians there in that space. My preference on this would be just to make it a pedestrian crossing. So, put the walking leg signs up, put the pedestrian crossing, and then make it very clear this is a pedestrian priority. The bizarre sort of road rule set in these circumstances is bizarre. It's, a vehicle turning in must give way to a pedestrian. So a vehicle turning right in or turning left in must give way to. Technically, the vehicle coming out has right of way on that side. The pedestrians have right of way to there, and then not to there. So to me, it's like clear it up, make it a pedestrian crossing. I know some of you, practically, if you've tried to do this, may have challenges off arterial roads like this, where the Department of Transport is worried about its impact on traffic flow. I think that we've got a bit of common sense movement in that space, considering the road rules say that you have to give way anyway. But I think we're more open, so the department's more open to those sorts of things these days. I'll do a couple more and then I'll take any questions. Here's another one in another example. So they've done this threshold treatment, which I think threshold treatments are great, which is to try to reduce the speed of vehicles turning in and provide that gateway into a residential environment to show it's a lower speed environment and everything should be kept lower. So they've lined this one up with the pedestrian crossing here. And they were concerned that the piano key marking here may be confused. This may be confused to pedestrian priority. So they decided to make it yellow so it would be not confused with the white crossing of a zebra crossing, or pedestrian crossing as it's officially called, but I'll say zebra because that's the colloquially known term. So they used yellow. Again, you got a question, really, do you think that the travelling public are switched on enough to know those minute differences? I highly doubt it. And we need to think about what would the average member of the public sort of think about as they approach this. It very much kind of looks like they're crossing, doesn't it? You've got to get yourself in that mindset. So how can you make that better? Well, one of the things I like to do is elongate the whole thing, spread it out, have clear, if you're going to not have pedestrian priority, well, make it clear. Keep the road surface that colour, keep it clear that way, maybe even move that back a little bit, but that's much clearer. You still get the slowing down effect there, but it's pretty obvious that that is still a road. So just trying to make it look like that. Clarity of prioritization. And yeah, airports, I could run a whole course with only slides from airports, I reckon, because there's some bizarre management of vehicles and pedestrians. But anyway, this is Launceston Airport, and this is the roadway, and this is where all the pedestrians have to go to get out to the cars and the like. Whose priority is it? Who knows? Well, it's actually vehicle priority, but geez, if you're a pedestrian and you're jet lagged and you're wandering out there, kind of looks like your priority. One advantage they've got is it's a raised spot, so at least the vehicles are going to hit them at a slow pace. But really, I mean, to me, that's sort of obvious. Make it pedestrian priority, surely.
Sorry, just a couple of questions have come through regarding, or probably back one. Can we use humps in arterial roads with a speed of 50 kilometres an hour?
Yes.
Okay. And another comment has come through saying, I feel these raised speed humps are confused with wombat crossings, which include zebra crossings.
Correct. So a wombat crossing is the Australian term for a raised pedestrian crossing, a raised zebra crossing. Absolutely. And that's the confusion with something like this, potential confusion with something like this. So spot on. Now, I answered that, can we use raised things on arterial roads 50 kilometres per hour? And I just said yes. Well, I should go a little bit further than that. There is very good guidance available on how to do vertical deflection. So that's anything raised on an arterial road with speeds of those magnitudes or higher. So there's two main things I'd point you to. There is a very recent Austroads document that has come out giving specifics on how to do these raised, anything raised on an arterial road. Raised intersections, raised road safety platforms, we'd call them, on those high-speed arterial roads. It tells you what grades to use to gain different speeds. It tells you all about how to sign it, how to line mark it, where to use it, how to think about drainage, all sorts of wonderful bits of information. A lot of that's come from the Victorian Road Design Note. The number's going to elude me, 0307, I think it might be, RDN 0307, but you can Google it, or we could even send it out to you. But it has a lot of great information as well. So yes, absolutely. Vertical deflection on arterial roads is very much what we can do if we believe it's warranted. Yeah, so this sort of stuff, again, it's just confusion of priority. I need to harp on that. In Victoria, at least, and actually across Australia and New Zealand, in order to get that genuine pedestrian priority, you need to have the walking leg sign. This is for a pedestrian crossing or a zebra crossing. It has to have the walking leg sign And it actually has to have the line marking as well. So this one technically wouldn't comply. There's no actual crossing markings. So you need that and the crossing markings as well. So here's the setup you would actually need. And here's potentially how it could be done on a slip lane, although we talked about slip lanes and the challenges there. And I am not a fan of an at grade, so a pedestrian crossing with no raised nature on a slip lane at all. And then we get into the details of specific use of incorrect signage and the like, and it all is stuff that as auditors we should be potentially picking up, whether we mark these as risks or we note them, but we want to get this consistent and clear, and it's an overarching importance in road safety. So here you see the use of pedestrian crossing ahead signs. There's no pedestrian crossing ahead. They're just trying to show pedestrians where to go. Incorrect use of signage. Is it a major road safety issue? Probably not. I think the nice, lovely 30 area there is going to help a hell of a lot. This one I had to chuckle at, and well, then I had to call somebody at the council because I stopped chuckling. But whoever installed the signs on this pedestrian crossing was using the signs to show the pedestrians where to cross, rather than pointing those at traffic to show that there was a pedestrian crossing there. So to me, that's an example of what we've kind of got to be expecting we're dealing with here. You're probably looking at that and going, how could anybody get that wrong? But these are people who install these signs for a living, and they've done that. So let's not expect too much out of people, and make sure we're going out and we're auditing post installation. We're checking these things, doing existing conditions audits and the like to try to ensure that this sort of stuff is weeded out. Again, what's the risk level of this? This one's probably a little bit more risky, but still the speeds are quite low in this environment, and things are probably operating somewhat like a shared zone anyway, but nonetheless, it's just wrong. So okay, let's do a little exercise. We'll do a couple of little exercises actually in our last 20 minutes or so. Here's a pedestrian crossing in a lovely beachside town. This is the main street. Now, what I want you to do is put yourselves in the road safety auditor shoes, but I want you to try to imagine that you're looking at this before it's been constructed. Now, the first thing I want to say is I don't want you focusing on these weird lines that are all throughout the road. This is sort of some artistic stuff to try to make the feel of the road slower and the like. Okay, ignore that for now. We could have a bit of discussion about whether that's valuable or not later if you want. But I just want to focus on the crossing itself. Now, you're looking at this from a design stage. If you're a designer and you're looking at it, what sort of small alterations in the design of this do you think you could do to make it safer for pedestrians utilising that facility? There's some little design tweaks that could be done. Pop that into the chat if you've got any thoughts, any ideas on how this could be altered at design stage to make it safer for pedestrians. Okay, so here's some great stuff in here already. Well done. So we've seen some people there talking about, could it be raised? I love that. I always love that question. Can you raise this? Is that, it acts then as a traffic calming device, but also elevates pedestrians up higher so they're better in view. It actually helps to clarify priority as well. So those are all good things. Some other stuff that's come in is, okay, sorry, I'm just reading as we go. Yeah. So there's a few people have talked about the vegetation and where it's growing and covering signs. That's another good thing to think about as an auditor. Often you will be doing audits and you'll get the landscaping plan, and you can think about, well, are they going to grow? Are they going to cover signs? Are they going to block sight lines? That's all good stuff. So think about that. The one that I think is really good here, which a couple of people have sort of pointed out, is what are the sight lines for a driver approaching from this way going to be? What are we going to see? So their sight lines are blocked by this bin, by the vegetation, by this parked car as well. And so if we have pedestrians, maybe some shorter pedestrians, you know, the 8-year-old, the 10-year-old, who knows to cross the pedestrian crossing and runs up here, well, they're blocked there. The sight lines are blocked and they'll pop out there. This very small tweak at design stage to take this whole setup of vegetation, bin and everything like that and put it on this side would open up those sight lines and it would be much clearer. Yes, they might need to maybe remove one of the car parks or continue that outstand, but that is a tiny change and something that an auditor can point out, and we can get a better safety outcome from the get-go. This one's better. I've got the bin on that side, and then this hopefully won't grow up much. So that's one. People talked about outstands. There is a curb outstand there. Could it be a shorter crossing point? Always a good thing to look at it as well. So that's a good one. Let me talk you through this incident before I give you another little exercise to do. Another report we were doing for the coroner. So unfortunately investigating a fatality that occurred to a pedestrian. And this is the point right where this photo is taken, where the pedestrian stepped out here and was struck by a vehicle coming through here. So what you see here, and it's a little hard, it's always hard from a photo, and that's why you need to get out on site with these. We see the green man, this, you know, the ticking of the sound that tells you to cross. When you're standing there and that's going, the green, the ticking and everything, and the vehicles have stopped, it really makes you want to go and step out there. But we've got this point, and let me show you what you're looking at. So that photo I had there was taken about here, looking that way. And this is a service road, into the service road, 50 km/h service road. That's the crossing there. I'll go back a step again here, and you see that this is Dandenong Road there, running at 70 km/h. You know, vehicles slip in here quite easily, and they continue on through there. So I suppose, you know, in looking at this, it's, you know, we didn't have any CCTV footage of the incident, and, you know, just trying to sort of piece together what sort of factors might influence here and the like. Again, it's that, was the pedestrian sort of focused through there and just took that step? Maybe. As I say, on site, it really gave that feel. And the speeds of that vehicle through there, and we saw them coming in there, they're decelerating from 70, but they're still going at quite a clip into that area. And unfortunately, that incident has taken the life of the pedestrian there. So what can we do in these sorts of situations? Well, there's a few things, obviously, as an auditor you could recommend. One being, well, I suppose the obvious one would be to somehow continue this through, and that would have been nice when the intersection was originally being built. Either the signalisation continues through, or this has a pedestrian priority for this bit somehow. So those sort of things. The second one is to think about the speed of vehicles entering environments like this. And so speed calming in here would be a very helpful thing. Threshold entry treatments. Another misunderstanding about road safety audits is to believe that they are Disability Discrimination Act audits, DDA audits. Called some different things in different jurisdictions, but those are the checks that the facilities can be used by everybody, regardless of what their abilities are, so that people in wheelchairs can use it, blind people can use the facilities and the like. Now, the Disability Discrimination Act, which is Victorian one, but a few other jurisdictions use it, and there's similar things around, goes into a huge amount of detail about things that are beyond really road safety related stuff. They talk about, you know, the height of different handrails and where steps are and access and all of these sort of things, which are important to look at. But it's important that you, if you're doing an audit, that it's very clear with your client that that this is not a DDA audit. Okay, if as an auditor we pick up something that overlaps, sure, we'll make that call, but we are not going to check all the ramp grades to make sure they meet exactly the grades that that must be met. We're not going to do detailed checks on the TGSIs, the tactile ground surface indicators and the like. That being said, if we identify something, we may elect to put it in that report, but be clear with your client. They're not the same thing, and it's not going to cover all of that. We talked about the use of the sort of yellow paint around pedestrian crossings. In these sorts of situations, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's a great thing. I don't know of any studies out there that show it's good or bad either way. I'll leave that to council to and the department decide whether or not they want to spend the money on that. And as I talked about before, TGSIs and road safety audits, it's up to you as an auditor whether you point anything out. I mean, there's lots of details about when and where they should be used. They need to contrast the pavement colour by a certain amount. They need to have the correct guidance and those sorts of things. Are they going to contribute to death and serious injury of pedestrians? Not in a huge amount of cases. That's, you know, if we get all of our tactile ground surface indicators correct across Australia, it's not going to eliminate pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries. It's not even going to put a dent in pedestrian fatalities and serious injuries. Probably something we want to get right. So you might as well point it out as to note, maybe, if you notice it. But yeah, let's think about where the big issues lie and what's contributing significantly to death and serious injury of pedestrians. All right, time for a little exercise for this wonderful group. Here we go. Got an intersection here. It's an existing intersection. It's actually been reconfigured since anyway, it's obviously two high-speed roads intersecting and outer suburban area. And what I want to do is give you a little quiz, and you're going to do this using the poll. But it's fairly simple, but it's going to require you to study this this plan a bit. So we will do a quiz. Don't pop it up yet, Kathy. Just give me a second here to explain what we're looking at. 4 serious injury crashes have occurred at this intersection, involving pedestrians being struck in exactly the same way. Okay. What your challenge is, and we're going to do it via the poll, so you'll get to have a guess using the poll facility in a second, is which of these crashes that I've drawn up is the one that has the 4 pedestrian serious injury crashes, all the same crash type. Okay, so let me take you through them. One is a vehicle turns in from this lane and the pedestrian is crossing this way. So in crash diagrams, we tend to use a dotted dashed line as pedestrians and the vehicle turning in. The second one is the pedestrian walking out here and the vehicle turning onto it there. The third one is the vehicle coming into this slip lane and the pedestrian crossing there and being struck. The fourth one is this slip lane where the pedestrian's crossing from the island out to there and the vehicle strikes it there. And the fifth one is the vehicle turning into this facility here and the pedestrian walking along there. So what we'll do is we'll pop up the poll, and all you simply need to do is vote on crash location type 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And remember, you're not being marked on this, but this is a way for you to, to have a think about that. And I'll give you a second to scratch your head and ponder each of those.
If that poll has popped up on top of the map there, you can just pick up that little poll box and move it around your screen so you can still look at the aerial image.
Thank you, Kathy. Yes, you move things around screen windows as you like. So get some good guesses in here, watching the poll behind the scenes. And just one more person, hopefully, to have a guess. Okay, 5, 4, oh, we got it. Okay. End that poll, and I will share. Okay, the results are being shared. So hopefully you can see that. So we've had the most people going for location 2. Very interesting there. But we did have people going for each one. Well, the correct answer is location 2, as quite a few of you got to. Now, why is that? Well, first of all, let me say that I drew every one of these crash types because there is a risk there. So anybody who answered any of them has some legitimacy because I've picked a specific risk. Why is this one and number 2 even higher risk? Well, this is where, as a road safety auditor, we need to put ourselves in the shoes of the pedestrian, in the driver's seat, in the rider's saddle, and pretty much take every movement through an intersection like this to try to see how it's all going to play out. And that's very much how I go about auditing. And I will say, okay, now I'm driving up here as a driver and I want to go straight through. And I would imagine myself going straight through. And I'd go, and then I'd say, okay, now I'm going to turn left into the service road. Okay, where am I seeing things? What am I seeing? Okay, I've approached here. If there's pedestrians along here, okay, I'm probably going to see a pedestrian. That's interesting. What's going on here? Okay, I'm up here now into the slip lane, and I'm looking up right, and I go, hang on, why am I turning onto a pedestrian crossing? That's strange. Let me see how. Let me go over to this one, to 4, which I know, there's challenges with slip lanes. So let's go up here. Okay, I come up here. The pedestrian's crossing right in front of me, and I turn, and I don't turn onto a slip lane there. Okay, this one, yeah, okay, I've got some clear sight lines. It's not great to keep clear. Maybe that'll block sight lines, a bit of risk there. This one's crossing into, well, nothingness. Where are the facilities? What's a pedestrian going to do there? Muddy, are they going to walk along the road? What's going to happen? So you really got to, and that continues on for quite a while. But this setup down here is weird, right? What's going on there? Well, what a crossing in this configuration should do is it should cross to the island and then cross there. The reason you do that is exactly to avoid this situation, because we don't want vehicles turning on to pedestrians like this. And this one's resulted in, as I say, 4 serious injury crashes. So the challenge you have as an auditor is to be able to pick these things up before they're ever built. So when you see this intersection designed in this way, to be able to say, well, you're creating a risk there. We know that's not going to work well. And you've done it by putting yourselves in the shoes or in the driver's seat and the pedestrian and sort of playing all of that out in your mind before it ever happens. Well done for those who picked number 2, and if you picked it for exactly that reason. But as I say, others who picked other ones, there's some merit there because each has been picked because of their weird little configuration. It's odd that you'd slip in there rather than closing that off and having them come out and go into there. There's an inherent slip lane issue there, as I've talked about. There's not much there, and you've got some that keep clear and sightline dynamic visual obstruction, sightline blocking up there. So that's the one. Well done. Any questions or comments on that come in?
Well, there was a comment earlier about maybe it should be a roundabout.
At this location? Not sure if it, what did we talk about before?
So. Anyway, and a lack of something lane, deceleration lane, thank you, at 4 makes the higher speed an issue. Where was number 4?
A lack of deceleration. Yeah, okay. So a vehicle coming in here doesn't have that long area to sort of decelerate, and probably having a look at the stand-up angles of these lanes as well. These slip lanes would be an interesting little exercise. But yeah, certainly some really good analysis going on there. And those are the sort of things you want to do as an auditor, and be trying to pick all of this apart and be providing recommendations before any of this is ever built. Or if it's existing, pointing all of this out and seeing what maybe can be done to alter this intersection to improve safety. Now, we were just focused looking there at pedestrians, weren't we? And just at a couple of locations. You've got to think about all the locations for pedestrians, and then for cyclists, and for motorcyclists, and for passenger vehicles, and for heavy vehicles. And you've got a lot to do in one intersection, don't you? The other thing to think about is talking about that time of day. If you're road safety auditing an area and it's going to have lots of pedestrians or lots of other road users at certain times of day, you really want to see it operating during that time of day. So take around to school, for example. You really got to get out there at end of school, start of school time, see how it operates like this to understand the sort of volumes we're talking about and the specifics of it. So get out there during those certain times. If you're doing an audit around the local football stadium or something like that, it's ideal to see it just after it's operating, before it's operating with a home game and a big crowd. Now, practical reality may mean you can't actually do that. Your audit's due in a fortnight and there's not a home game for another month or something. So, you may not be able to, but it is ideal to be able to see that. The other thing I like to do as a road safety auditor, and I'll leave this one up to you, and it usually happens that the audit team goes out there, high-vis vest on, everybody's got some clipboards with the team, and you're standing out there on site, and it doesn't take long for some member of the public to wander up and ask what's happening, what's going on, and I tend to say, oh, we're just having a look at this intersection. I don't sort of say who I'm council's engaged us to look at it, or departments or whatever like that. I just say, I'm just having a look at this intersection. What can you tell me about it? How does it operate? You seen any safety issues? You got any concerns? Gee, you get a wealth of information from these people. You've got to obviously filter it all. But the people who live around the intersection, who use the intersection every day, can give you some wonderful insights into things that are going on. So if you want to do that, or if you think it's appropriate or safe, sometimes you get some specific instructions from your client to be very not engage with anybody while you're out there and these sorts of things. So be conscious of that. But wonderful source of information. School crossing supervisors as well, they're great sources. They'll tell you exactly what's going on. Now, there are lots and lots of different ways that we can treat pedestrian crossings or pedestrian areas to make them safer. with all those speed management devices, local area traffic management, redesigns of the whole area. Some pedestrian crossing specific facilities that I'd like to just point out, you may or may not have heard of. Puffin crossings, pedestrian user-friendly intelligent crossings. So these are where you've got basically, when you walk up to a house at night and the lights come on automatically, yeah, it's the same technology, and they just put it into the traffic signals, the pedestrian crossing there, and the lights stay on red if there's movement on the crossing. So it's just a device that can be retrofitted to crossings and just holds that light red while there's movement on there. That's a great little feature for, especially when you've got pedestrians who might be slower, elderly pedestrians crossing or these sorts of things, and you can hold the red. So it's a good feature. Toucan crossing. So you might notice there's a little bit of a bird theme going on here. So somebody must have decided back in the day that pedestrian facilities will go with a bird theme, and so people have stuck to that. So the toucan cross is where you make it so both a pedestrian and a cyclist can cross. So toucan cross. Yeah, so they must have been having fun in the naming of these things. Now, is this a safety issue? It's definitely a road rule thing. You want to get all that right. Maybe you make the width a bit more and make it easier for those to happen. A pelican crossing. So a pelican crossing is basically where a driver will see a red light as the pedestrians are crossing, and then instead of jumping straight to a green, it goes to a flashing amber light. And it flashes for a while, and it's usually supplemented with, give way to pedestrians when light flashing or whatever. And that's just to give that extra time. But, if it's safe and there's nobody still on the crossing, drivers can proceed through, and then it goes to green. And there's quite a few of those around. Victoria, certainly. Bendigo's full of them, and in the Bolwyn shops, lots of those, and in different places. So they're a pelican crossing, and that one stands for pedestrian light controlled crossing. Pelican crossing. And there's a humped pelican crossing sign out of the UK, and that one was grabbed off a website. It's like world's strangest road signs. So some people believe that's quite odd, especially if they don't know what a pelican crossing is, and a humped pelican crossing especially. So at least we're keeping the public entertained. There are Pegasus crossings. So that's technically a horse in most jurisdictions is a vehicle, so providing that specific vehicle facility. A little bit of random trivia for you here, which I know you're enjoying. It is illegal to ride a horse when you're intoxicated, because that's actually technically drink driving. But it is actually not illegal to ride an intoxicated horse. I really need the hilarity of laughing feedback from the group, which I don't get when it's online.
It wasn't that funny, Ken.
Yeah. Oh, somebody's given me some laughs. Thank you.
You're too kind, people. Don't encourage him.
Yeah. I think it may be highly illegal to get a horse intoxicated, but if the horse drinks by itself, and that's on the horse. Right, let's carry on. Sorry, we're nearly finished.
5 minutes, Ken. 5 minutes.
Sorry, I've got my timing down pat. Okay, you might be overwhelmed here by thinking, oh my God, that example we just showed, 4 serious injury crashes. What if I order it and I don't pick something like that up? Yeah, this is scary. This is real. These are people's lives and that we're talking about, and we get things wrong. Okay, first thing is, when you start auditing, you audit with senior road safety auditors. You're in a team. You're going to get lots and lots of guidance, lots of help. You do as a team, you'll pick these things up. The second thing, and I haven't told you this yet, is that in the Austroads guides, we've provided you with help. Okay, in the back of the Austroads guide, about the last 40 pages, are these things we call checklists. We're about to rename them as prompt lists. Okay, what they do is they guide you through a whole lot of things to look at, to think about in the design you're looking at or the bit of road you're looking at. Make sure you think about a whole lot of things when you're doing your audit. And that will significantly help to make sure you don't forget anything, you don't miss anything. So it's a really, really great starting point. And yeah, I really encourage new auditors to utilize those checklists. And in fact, you will be utilizing those checklists when you do your mock audit. And those checklists cover off pedestrians, cyclists, motorcyclists, heavy vehicles, and alcohol. So you've got a bit of stuff to help you. Let's do a final quiz, Kathy, and then off we go. I think it's a little just quick, easy one.
I think we might be out of time, Ken.
I think it's at the bottom of the list, Kathy, if you're looking for it.
Oh no, you're right. Damn it. Okay, there it is on your screen now. Ken's got me again. Which of the following is not one of the 3 infrastructure strategies for pedestrian safety? Is it prevention, segregation, separation, integration?
All right, so thinking very much back to what we talked about at the start. So we've got some general overarching strategies for pedestrian safety, and you can categorize things, which is not.
Just got a few more people to put in their votes. We might get 100% all round on this one, I think.
Oh, getting close. Couple more people who are diving at their keyboard as we speak. Give it 5 more seconds.
And I'll close that off.
And almost everybody got it. I think somebody at the end just diving at the keyboard picked one. Prevention, yeah, not necessarily one of the specific pedestrian safety strategies. It was that segregation, separation, or integration is really how we think about those 3. Beautifully done. Thank you very much for that. That gets me to the end of the slides, but a couple of things just to remind you here. You have a quiz now to do for this, this topic. Another 10 questions or so in Moodle, won't take you long at all. The other thing is you should be hopefully getting onto your little research topic. If you're having trouble finding information, or if you're having trouble deciphering what on earth this topic is that you've got, for example, get in contact, happy to talk you through it, help point you at some information. We don't want a PhD on this topic. We want a short, crisp fact sheet or a little video or something like that, just to give us some main points of information. And we will give out a prize for most creative, most engaging, and most technically sound. So you've got a chance to win some prizes on that. Right, I think that pretty much gets us to the end. We've timed this one beautifully, but I'll see if there's any final questions. A couple of nice little links to some...
it's an Elvis pedestrian crossing.
Yeah, except I can't open it, disappointingly. Anyway, I'll try and find that. But thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. We will see you tomorrow. And you'll have some exciting presentations from Jamie Robinson, detailed design and heavy vehicle stuff. Tony Ball, who'll talk to you about construction site, road safety auditing, work sites. And I'll cover off a bit of the use of the checklists or prompt guides.
Good one. And there is another little mini assignment coming after tomorrow's session. So do work on your research topics and get that one out of the way, because you will be hit with another one before the weekend.
All right.
See you
Thank you very
tomorrow.
much.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.